Hello friends and welcome back. I'm Enterprise Architecture. We are back here playing more modded Vintagestory, and today I am turning my attention to our weaponry. We had been having to fight a few monsters to be able to get enough of our flax string so that we can continue making more windmills. And this makes me realize that we can probably start thinking about upgrading our weaponry setup. We do have the Swordz mod enabled in this, so I'd like to see what that is capable of and see how much we can get done. So, with no further ado, let's dive right in. Now, yes, I know we are supposed to be playing a very chill, very peaceful playthrough here, but in the very near future, we are going to have to deal with a whole bunch of monsters because we are going to have to go through the quest content that is in this pack. That dinging you're hearing is our stove, which is cooking a bunch of stuff upstairs, so sorry about that. Can't do much about it. So we are going to need at least a few weapons. Right now, we have a steel falx. And this says that it has an attack power of -50. I don't know if that's a typo or not, because if we look at the other falxes, including the meteoric falx, the meteoric one is actually -100. And that, as far as I can tell, might be the most powerful thing in the game. However, the Swordz mod adds a bunch of swords to this that all seem to have a weaker attack power, but I would have assumed that they would have been more powerful. But we're going to try and make some and see whether or not that's a typo or not. So for instance, I think in here there's like a katana, right? So if we look at the best katana, the honed steel katana, I guess the titanium katana is probably the best. That's attack tier 7, but only a -7 HP. So I don't know if that's really the same as only 7 HP versus the 100 HP that the other one is supposed to be taking off. That's a little bit strange, but of the swords that we would potentially want to make, katana is definitely on the list of something I might want to consider. We can actually go ahead and make a titanium one because we do have access to titanium at this point. So let's see here, the actual piece that we need. Oh, swavite. I don't know how to get that. We'll have to go looking for that. But what I was saying is that we need a titanium blade, and the titanium blade we can just make out of titanium ingots, which is easy enough. We can get crushed titanium easily from what we've already got, the ilmenite. So that should be perfectly doable. I think in the Swordz mod that for our purposes, the titanium is going to be the highest tier for most of this stuff. Now, there's a couple of other neat tools in here that I think might be worth looking at, particularly since we are going to be building a dragoon build. We should look at polearms and spears. And I believe the naginata is in here. Yes, there is. Naginata is a Japanese polearm with basically a mini sword at the end of a spear. It is an amazing, amazing weapon and probably one of my all-time favorites. This appears to only have up to steel. There does not appear to be a titanium one, but it should be easy enough for us to craft here. We just need a steel ingot to hammer that out. So that is probably something that we are going to try and do here. Now, we are down here in the basement because our mycelial pulp that we had put in the tannin earlier has at least turned into the first stage. We need to put this back into the strong tannin after the weak tannin, and this will turn into tanned mycelial pulp in a few days, 4.5 days from now exactly. That should be enough time for us to make some good progress on this, and I think that will then be ready to be turned into leather that we can use for other things. Now, the dinging is, of course, me making quick lime out of lime because we need to make a bunch more mortar still for our build, for our library build. And just to kind of check in on that, I did start to tear this back down because I realized that, honestly, the cobblestone I don't think looks nearly as good as these ashlar blocks. So I started making the ashlar blocks up instead as a replacement. And those are a little more complicated. We have to make the ashlar bricks, which we can do off of those giant slabs we've cut from our quarry, but we do need mortar to make those. So I think that looks just a little more sophisticated than the cobblestone that we're using everywhere else, but it's still a good complement to what we've done in the rest of our build. So first things first, we do want to try and make a meteoric falx, and that means we need to get more meteoric iron. I found a couple of pieces in a meteor spot that I'd found up in the north while we were exploring that ruin. And there's at least a couple of other spots on the map that we have found meteors so far. And I believe I have marked all of those. Here is one spot on this island. That's gonna be the first place that we look. And I think there is another one somewhere down in here. No, that's bauxite. So somewhere in this mess, there is another meteor that we found. So we're gonna go adventuring and gather up all of the meteoric iron that we are aware of on the map. 2 pieces smelt into 1 iron ingot. Oh, well, this actually might be more than enough for what we need, especially if we're planning on making our armor out of steel, not out of meteoric iron. But I am going to go and gather up these other pieces just so we have the extra. Yes, this is indeed the correct spot. So let's start mining this up here. I don't know how much meteoric iron we will find, but we will take whatever we can get here. Did I not bring my shovel with me? That's kind of an oversight. I probably should have brought that. Yeah, there seems to be some in here. I still am really bad at reading the map, y'all. When I'm wandering around, I don't always see these spots. Occasionally, if I'm just walking by one, I'll notice that there is that particular circular pattern on the ground, and I will realize that there's a meteor there, but 99% of the time, I'm walking right by meteoric iron and not ever realizing it. So that is a problem. I'm trying to get better at reading the map. I only recently got relatively good at reading the map to determine if there's actual plants that are useful, like any of the seeds that we can gather up, or flax or whatnot, but I still am really, really bad at noticing meteoric iron. Now, around the meteoric iron is this swavite rock that we actually need to be able to make the swavite stone here that we use for honing. So we do need to make sure that we're getting at least some of that while we're going through here. So we're going to use our advanced mining techniques to try and get individual blocks of swavite out of this, just like that. So we will need to slowly chip our way around some of these pieces to be able to break them off. All right, well, I didn't find any other meteoric iron anywhere, which is a shame. Let's pull our bismuth out of this furnace that we've got set up here, the electric kiln, sorry. And I wonder if, yeah, this will then turn iron meteoric pieces directly into ingots, I believe. Okay, there we go. This is slowly starting to turn into meteoric iron for us. Now, how much of this do we need to make our falx head? Let's take a look here. Falx, nope. Over here, falx head, I believe 1 ingot's worth. So actually we can go ahead and make this right away. So let's go ahead and turn on our electric forge. We're gonna throw on our meteoric iron ingot, get that up to temperature. It looks like the workable temperature is 1300 Fahrenheit. That is the freedom units, of course, that we were using here. Let's get that closer to 1600 before we pull it off. And also, as always, what do we always forget? Yes, we need a hammer and we need our tongs to not burn ourselves horribly. Okay, so there we go. We can grab that up. Let's start getting this worked out real fast on our anvil. Where is our falx head? We have it in here somewhere. That's the one that we want. Okay, great. With our hammer in hand, we should be able to start auto-completing this very easily. There we go, and just split off these last 2 nuggets, and there we go. Now we have our falx head, and then I believe all we have to do is grab up a stick here. There we go. Whoops, not stick with an E. It's not a stick E. There we go. Grab this, and then put our falx head on it, and there we go. Now we have a meteoric iron falx. So in theory, if this is actually 50 HP, and this is actually 100 HP, this should be able to take down even the mightiest of those various creatures we're seeing at the bottom of the world with 1 hit. All right, so here we are down at the bottom of the world. So if this is indeed as good of a weapon as I think it is, then Shivers, well, a Tainted isn't that strong of an enemy anyway. We really need to find a Nightmare or a Bellhead to test this on. Then we'll know whether or not this is great. Oh, a Bellhead. This is exactly what we wanted. So in theory, yeah, it takes it out in 1 hit. That is amazing. So we are going to need 2 more materials here. Oh, resin is not one of them, but I will certainly take it. That we are going to need to sharpen our blades. And among those that we are going to need is going to be sandstone and granite. So this is a great place for us to grab up a bunch of sandstone sand, but underneath the sand, we should find actual sandstone, and that's going to be the other thing that we are after. So let me grab that up, and then I believe we found a decent amount of granite when we were up north. So let me clear this out, and we will get solid chunks of sandstone here. Again, we're going to use the same trick that we have been using repeatedly, which is to break off pieces of it. And the way that we have been doing that is, well, you can do this with quarrying, but I don't really have the patience to quarry this right now. So instead, I'm just going to break this here. We are going to go down a level underneath and clear out all of the blocks underneath this, just like this. And you could really do every other block for this method. That would work just as well, if not better. And then all we have to do is break off solid pieces from this chunk. So let's clear this here. Oh, what's under here? What kind of stone is that? We'll find out in a second. If I break this, and then I break this, then we get a solid block. Oh, it's shale under here. Okay, that is good to know. Shale might be a great building material for us in the future. And just like this, yeah, we're getting solid blocks of our sandstone back off of this. Oh, and literally right underneath here, as soon as I started going down, I found a bunch of brown coal. This is wonderful. I mean, that's just ridiculously good luck. We have had nothing but amazing luck in this pack so far, finding just really, really great ores. Really, really huge amounts of coal. This is going really well for us, especially compared to season 1 when we tried to go through all of this. That was comparatively a disaster, I have to say. This is going really well. Just need to dig out a bunch more of this, and then we will be good to go and ready to continue on our crafting adventure. All right, our meteoric iron is all done here, so I'm going to get started on heating up our ilmenite so that we can start making a bunch of ingots of that. I'm going to throw some steel bits in here that we had cut off of various other things that we had been making, so we'll have that ready to go. But first things first, let's grab up our steel ingot. I think we only need a single piece of steel to be able to make this blade. Let's find out if that is indeed the case. I keep closing the window, which is not what I intend. We go all the way back here. Yeah, it looks like a blunt titanium sonobe is going to be made with a titanium ingot. So yeah, just a single ingot. So let's see here. Oh, let's do the naginata first because we don't have titanium ready. How many pieces do we need for that? Only one steel ingot for a naginata blade. So turn this on, get that heated up, and make sure to swap out for our tongs. Great. Momentarily, that should be able to make our steel naginata head. Now, I did not see a titanium naginata blade in there anywhere, so this is just gonna have to be the goodest that we can get. There we go, steel naginata head. That's what we are after. Wonderful. All right, so let's start auto-completing this real quick. And it looks like this only uses 31 nuggets. So we should have more than enough here. We can knock off a decent amount. There we go. Let's start splitting off the remaining extra pieces here. Great. Okay, there is our naginata head. And now all we need to do is grab up our, what is it? We're gonna need our nails and strips. That's what we're gonna need. Okay, so nails and strips go here. Sticks go here. Naginata head goes there, and hammer goes there. Wonderful. Now we have a steel naginata. Now this says that it's only 6.2 attack power, which if that's actually accurate, I don't understand why it is so terrible compared to our falx, which is 100 attack power. We'll have to look into that and figure out if something is weird or if that's editable or anything else that we can do about that if that is indeed that low. I would expect this to be way, way stronger than a meteoric iron falx, but who knows? Who knows what's going on there? All right, and our titanium is now done, so we can use our one piece of titanium to make a sonobe. So let's get that working here. I hope I'm saying that right. My Japanese is very rusty. Okay. But we're not playing with rust today. No. We are playing with sharpened edges today. Let's see here. So, sonobe blade. Yeah, so we want the blunt one because then we are going to sharpen that. So let's get this hammered out real quick. Oh, this only requires 17? Wow. Well, I guess it's a very thin blade, but I would have assumed it was a long blade and thus needed a lot more. There we go. Okay, so now we have the blade for this. To make a honed one, as mentioned, we first have to make ourselves up these whetstones. So let's start with our blunt one and make a granite whetstone. I believe we can get the chisel and we have everything we need for that, except for we need polished. So we can take our granite and a chisel and a hammer and make a polished version. Do we have our chisel still in the system somewhere, or did I accidentally walk off with that? No, we have a chisel. Great. While we are at it, let's see here. This is the granite. We are going to need our sandstone. We are also going to need the Swordz. Is that how you say that? I believe that's correct. Okay, so let's make the polished version of each of these. There's polished granite. There is polished sandstone. And there is polished Swordz. And then from that, I believe, is it the same recipe to get the whetstone? No, that is not correct. How do we do that whetstone? Let's see that one more time. It is sideways. Okay, no problem. We can work sideways with this. Okay, so we put this here, polished. There's a whetstone. That's what we like to see. Perfect. Okay. That is not the same whetstone that we've been using for everything else, mind you, but that will work. Let's just dump off some of this extra nonsense back into our system. Great. Okay, so blunt with a granite whetstone becomes dull. Dull with a sandstone becomes sharpened. Sharpened with Swordz becomes honed, and honed should be the top tier. The honed, then all we need is a brass ingot, which we have plenty of. We are going to need some flax. Looks like we have 2 flax twine, and we have plenty of flax twine to make up one more piece of flax twine. There we go, just like this. And then we are going to need to use one of those very few pieces of leather that we had from earlier on. We did find some animals that had died as a result of being attacked by other animals, so we collected up their hides at that time. That should, I believe, give us our honed katana. Perfect. All right, so now we have 2 very fascinating weapons to try out. Let's clear out our inventory and we will head down into the depths and see how these do against our enemies. All right, here we are back in our cavern. Let's grab up our katana first and see how our katana does against our enemies. Have no enemies spawned yet? Oh no. Yeah, this is terrible. This isn't doing hardly any damage. Yeah, I don't understand why this is so weak. Okay, well, okay, you're dead finally, but that took what, 5 hits? That's way worse than I would have expected. How about our naginata? Nope. Yeah, that also took about 5 hits. Okay, so what we have learned here is that the weapons that are in the Swordz mod, for whatever reason, are actually very, very, very weak by default. Alright, so I went digging through the source files here, and what I discovered is that I think there is definitely either a bug going on in this version or a mod is conflicting. Because the actual falx, if it's meteoric iron or steel, is supposed to be, let's see here, 5.25 attack power. Meanwhile, the naginata is supposed to be 6.2 attack power for steel. Definitely not supposed to be 100 attack power. Something is very, very, very weird going on. So this meteoric iron falx, for whatever reason, is extremely cheaty. I don't know why, but it is. I really like it though. It is very cheaty and it is very fun to be able to kill even the strongest monsters with 1 hit. But realistically here, I think that the katana is going to be the more realistic weapon for what was originally intended for Vintagestory. So 5 or 6 hits for an enemy, and I think we're going to have to live with that. I think I'm going to get very, very used to using these two weapons. I do like that the naginata gives us a decent attack distance as well, and also it just looks ridiculously cool when we wield it. Again, if we're playing with a dragoon, this sort of a weapon makes the most sense, but if we do end up in close combat, being able to have a katana I think will also be good. Alright, so we're getting close on time here, but I was looking forward to what we're going to do in the future with regard to our armor once we have a lot more leather. We do not have nearly enough leather to be able to make any sort of armor that is going to be reasonable for us, specifically the ones that we want for endgame. And again, Hussar Dragoon armor, the steel set, is what I am looking to make. Now, for this, I'm trying to determine whether or not I want to do the blue or the purple. The blue is closer to the look that I think that we're generally going for, but I think the blue is just a little too light here. And I think, honestly, the purple would look way better and go with my whole vibe a little bit better. So that's what we'll probably aim for. And so that means we are going to end up needing purple leather and purple cloth for that. So purple leather and cloth needs purple dye. And that purple dye we need to make by mixing one of these various ingredients in a barrel. So we have access to water and blueberries, I believe still, and black currants are probably pretty easy for us to get as well. So we can make that up. Alternatively, if we have red dye and ultramarine, which we make from lapis lazuli, or powdered nickel, which we also have on hand, we can make purple dye. But for that, we're going to need red dye to start. Red dye we make by litharge, which we just found a bunch of litharge very, very recently while we were in that same tunnel that I was just showing you. We can also use powdered hematite, which we have plenty of hematite on hand, or vermilion, which we make by crushing cinnabar, which I believe we have a decent amount of cinnabar laying around as well. So I might start grinding that up because we don't really use it for anything else. Oh yeah, we basically had to tunnel down to the bottom of the earth, but we did indeed find our cinnabar right underneath our base, right where I thought it was. And here is our nickel, which is going to be the other major ingredient we're going to need. I think we're going to need a couple of other colors here as well, but we will gather those up as we go. Alright, so as our last thing today, let's start getting these things grinded up properly. So first things first, we are going to need to grab up our pentlandite. Yeah, we want this. This we can then throw into our crusher. We want to get nuggets out of this. And there we go. Look at that. Very, very quickly, we are getting our pentlandite nuggets back out of this crusher machine that we've got. This is so much quicker and doesn't use any actually durability of our hammer, which is even better. So once this is done, we can smelt these into ingots and then we can re-crush them. Okay, and those are done. Now, on the other hand, our cinnabar, we want to immediately crush, I believe, into a powder. So there we go. This is turning into crushed cinnabar. And then when we get that crushed cinnabar back out, we should be able to then turn this into vermilion by grinding it once it's done. Now, the nickel we are going to take over here, and we need some sort of a multiple of 20. This is going to heat up, and then this will start melting down into nickel ingots. Now, to make the matching shield to go with this armor set, we are going to need the purple leather for the purple ornate steel shield, but we're also going to need pink leather, and we are going to need gray leather. So pink leather is going to be made with pink dye. Pink dye we make by doing what? Oh, we need powdered rhodochrosite, which I don't even know where we would get that from. We need to grind up rose quartz or rhodochrosite. Let's see if we have any of that on hand while we are looking through this. That would be in there with our various crystals. So I don't think we have sylvite. I don't expect we're going to have more than, yeah, just a little bit of it. We have a bit of corundum, a little bit of phosphorite, but yeah, that's not enough to really get where we are going. So I think instead, for our pink dye, we are going to have to use the alternate recipe. So we will have plenty of cranberries come spring. We just are going to have to wait a little while on that. So given that we are still in January, not too long from now, we can start planting cranberries again. And gray leather is way easier. We can just use metal scraps to make that. We just pulverize those down, and we have lots of metal scraps, but honestly, we want to use metal scraps for some of these other recipes. So I might just go ahead and start breaking down rusty gears instead, because that might be the easiest thing for us to get more of. We can always kill monsters to get lots of rusty gears. Getting metal scrap is comparatively rare out of monsters. So we'll only need 5 of them to get gray dye. So as soon as this is done, with the vermilion, we will start making up our dyes. We'll also pulverize some nickel ingots to get the blue dye while we are at it. Let's see here. We just need to pulverize this, right? To crush nickel, powdered nickel, and then that makes blue dye. Yeah. Okay, let me do that in just a second. Okay, rusty gears, nickel, and vermilion. Let's go make ourselves up some dyes. And I think we are going to use our basement to do all of this because we have all of those buckets of water just sitting around waiting for use. I should say barrels of water waiting for use right here. So I think these will become our dye barrels. So let's take a look here. We got 50 liters of water, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This needs 8 hours of sealing. So we seal that, and we apparently drop the other ones on the floor. Great. This one, I think it's going to end up being 50 units of powdered nickel. No, is that not right? Let's see here. Used in blue dye with water. Oh, we need diluted alum first. Yes, there we go. Diluted alum. We just need crushed alum here. If we powder it, then it's still going to be 2. We get double the amount, but it's still 2 units it needs. So there's not really any difference whether we crush it or powder it here. So we're just going to crush all of this alum down, and then the alum will become the base of our dye. Okay, crushed alum is done. And down here in the basement, I think, hopefully, we won't need to use all of this. Yeah, apparently we only needed to use 10 units there. And then all we need to do is add in our powdered nickel here. I don't remember how much powdered nickel. Apparently that's how much we need. Yeah, so that got us our blue dye. That's ready to go. And then our red dye should just be with vermilion. Let's see here. Vermilion, ingredient for red dye, 5 liters, 1 piece of vermilion. Oh, so it's 1 to 10. There we go. So seal that, and that will give us our vermilion dye. Wonderful. Okay, and we're just going to put our barrel, excuse me, not our barrel, our reed chest right here on the wall so we can make more of this if we need to. Well, friends, we have made some pretty good progress, and we are well on our way to getting armed up. We have learned the way of the blade, and now we are ready to take on most of the challenges in this game. The next thing we need to do is start armoring up. So as soon as we have our leather done, we can start crafting some pretty decent steel armor, but we still need those feathers. We're still waiting on that. At exactly the moment the rooster crows. No, we are not going to go after our feather friends. We are only going to buy feathers in this game. But for now, we're going to call that the end of this episode. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.